Hello. In this video, I will be going over what characters from a game I am way too fixated on I'd get along with. Also, you can kind of just see where I gave up on the title drawing. Just wanted to point that out. The game is called Twisted Wonderland and is based off Disney villains, but now they're anime characters with trauma. My friends got me into it just about 2 months ago, and I may have gotten a little fixated on it, to the point where I'm basically set for most of the game in terms of leveling and have 7 of the rarest types of character. Unfortunately, 2 of those are Rook, but I'll get to why that's kind of bad later. Let's get started with the better Hogwarts, shall we? Oh, and for the ranking, I'll be putting a chart, so feel free to pause to check the definitions, because I'm lazy and I don't want to make another chart that's better. Let's get started. Starting off with the Queen of Hearts himself. Seriously, play the game, you get to see 6 characters of cool anime mental breakdowns, and 1 character that's a mediocre anime mental breakdown, cause it should have been Ruggy. Anyways, one of my best friends made a video on why Riddle has OCD, so I'll link that in the description. Back to the actual question, I'm gonna give him a solid 6.5, because I'd probably not be able to remember all the rules, and thus get scolded for not making tea after a croquet or something, but I'd most likely try it once I heard his backstory, because Riddle's mom is the worst. 0 stars for Riddle's mom. Going back to Banana's videos, I recommend you watch some of her recent ones, especially her Basil one and her D&D Inside Again video. I was the DM in that game. And boy howdy did the players suffer. Moving on, Ace Trapala. Although he was the first character you fully meet beside the neglectful school principal and the megalomaniacal trash panda, Grim, I'm going to put this guy as a 4. If you play the game, you'll know why. Although he does get better as the books go on, so after book 4 I'd move him up to a 5. Moving on to the Tweedledum to Ace's Tweedledee, we have Deuce Spade. He's an idiot, and I do mean an idiot, but is overall somewhat chill, so I'll say a 6. He tried romancing a plant because he thought compliments would made it grow, is all I'm going to say for his academic intellect at least. You'll find out the funniest bit about that if you play the game. I'm going to stop that now. But if you have, let's just say, don't put your eggs in one basket. A wink wink. That was in the script. Next up, we have Trey Clover. I like to think I relate to this guy very much, probably just because we both have bad eyesight and a fondness for baking, even though I never do it. The food goes mostly one direction for me, that being in the direction of my digestive tract, because I'm lazy. I did make bread recently, though as of the first draft, which in actuality was a while ago because I'm lazy. Funny thing, I just made bread yesterday. Not yesterday, a few days ago. But I guess I did make bread. So that was fun. He's way better socially than I am, though. Finally, rounding up the House of Heartstabile, that is the house name, we have Cater Diamond. He's an influencer, not as bad as Ace, and he's friends with Lilia, so I guess I'll say a 6. I tolerate him. Would be a fellow theater kid, though. And also for the houses, basically think Hogwarts, but instead of 4 houses, there's 7, and they're each based off their own Disney villain, and the house warden / boss is based off said villain as well. Right? Finally, moving on to the next house of Savannah Claw, we have Leona King Scholar, the guy with the really, really bad, mediocre anime breakdown. I can relate a lot to the laziness and a little bit to the apathy and inferiority complex at times, but he's a jock, and it was me to Ruggy. In fact, he is so much of a jock that while me and my friends were doing a playthrough of the game, I continually gave him a frat boy voice. And just added bruh at the end of every sentence. But it's also, so I'll give him a 3. At least he's in Florida Rook, and his overbought was horrible, because his whole shtick was like, oh, I'm so lesser than the king. Your underling grew up starving, and you're worried about having the second position of power? Anyways, speaking of said underling, moving on to Ruggy Bucci. I did probably butcher that, but anyway, as much as I like this little kleptomaniac as a character, I would not so much as friends. He'd probably steal my phone and my credit card info. I'd still give him food, though, so I'd say a 6. He's just a goofy guy. Also, apologies for the poor mic quality. I am literally just using my phone. Fun fact, it's been about 2 months since I did the previous stuff. Alright, now let's get back on track. Jack Howell, actually mentally stable, and actually respects the main character. You'd honestly think that appears more in the story, but it doesn't. I think we'd be friends. I'd say a 7, even though he is more basic than Liquid Drain Cleaner. That implies that there is Solid Drain Cleaner. And, fun fact, Solid Drain Cleaner exists. It does seem rather counterintuitive, but you hydrate it after. Now, I'd like to discuss Capitalism Central, or more colloquially known as Octabanel Dorm. It honestly has one of my favorite color schemes and location maps, so without further ado, here we go. First up on the roster is Azul Ashengrotto. Honestly, one of the coolest last names. He wears glasses and plays board games. Probably someone I'd get along with after a few months. Going to put him in an 8, since any D&D player is a friend of mine. For context, he runs the board game club with Edia, and I actually wrote a fanfic about that on a Google Doc, so not on fanfic. Or Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu, Kids on Bikes, Root, anything really. So yeah, it's an 8. Also, his power is sick, and he owns a restaurant. If we were friends, I'm sure he'd give me at least a 1% discount. Next up on Octavanel, Jade Leech. Haha, funny mushroom man. But he is more composed than Floyd, and is still the right amount of mentally ill to be friends with me. Going to say a 6 on the Mafia fish. And yes, they all work in the Mafia. I think Azul runs it. The more you know. And the final member of Octavanel, Floyd Leech. Although I can relate to the motivation stuff, because I've spent 4 months doing this. 4 months being split up, by the way. So, yay. He reminds me of the kids in my Spanish class a while ago, and I hated those guys. So I was going to give him a 2, but he does say yeet, which I learned in January. Plot twist, it's April now. Probably going to get this out in like June or something. But if I'm not, pleasant surprise. And for the yeet, I'll give him a 3. So, 3. And our next dorm on There Is No Therapist, Why Are We Here? Is called Scarabia, a.k.a. there are 2 types of neurodivergent, Kaleem and Jamil. That pretty much sums up the house. Just for future reference, anytime I say house, I usually mean dorm, although they live in literal castles, so it is technically a house, because they're all filthy rich, except apparently, like Ruggy, a few other people, and you, aka main character, are all pretty much penniless in canon story. You do get filthy rich if you play your cards right in the game, but only on the outside. Anyways, going to one of the richest members in the game, Kaleem Alisim. Probably butchered that. He would want to be my friend, but he's really energetic for my currently super lazy state, because school was tiring. I'd give him a 6, maybe a 7 if we interacted for a while. And next up on the list, Jamil Viper. And fun fact about Scarabia, just like Octabanel, it only has 2 members. But for Jamil, he would honestly probably be the opposite of Kaleem, where I want to be his friend because he's cool. But I feel like he wouldn't want to be mine because I feel like I can be annoying or confusing sometimes. I'll give him a 7. And next up on the Twisted Wonderland dorms, finally getting all this done, this is Pompior, which is basically the fashion industry condensed into a single place where no one wants to be there except these 2 people. First person, Wilf Schoenheit. His last person just means pretty in German. By the way, that is a fake name for... I don't know about the first part, but the second part is. And sounds like a jerk. Just played the chapter, and he is a bit of a jerk, but I do feel bad for him because his backstory is sad. I'll say 4 stars. Would have been 5, but I'm a tad peeved about not getting his Tomb Sitter card, and then not getting his Red Carpet Cadets card for the Snow White remake, which I did not watch, but apparently the entire internet roasted, so I'm glad I didn't watch. And rounding out Pompior, we got Rook Hunt, who I am very grateful to be named neighbors with. Anyways, not fully named neighbors, but close enough. He's a bargain bin bulkhead Hisoka, as I put so eloquently, And I will not have anyone say otherwise, because apparently there are people on the internet who simp for Rook. I don't want to be friends with someone who likes spying on people, as he specifically states he also specifically states he wants to turn the Savannah class students into rugs and furniture. And I believe he is the worst of all of them. So 1 star. Also, I've gotten 3, which shocking plot twist. I do believe I now have 4. Wait, I do have 4. I have 4 of his SSR cards, I think. Unless I've got that wrong, but I do believe I have around 3 to 4 of Rook's cards. Rook's SSR cards are the rarest ones, which I'm a little terrified about. Anyway. And yes, I do have 4. I got his Savannah Claw one. Long story. And next up on Pompvier's roll call is F.L. Felmier. And as I put it so eloquently in the script, short. But yes, we would be friends. I also very much like apples and livestock and barbecue and macarons. So we could talk about that and have a common interest. I'll give him 7 stars. And as they say in the Shaftlands where Ethel's from, I'm a cowboy. Which, funnily enough, is in the north, I think. Wow, in my previous ones, I have been rambling a lot because at the time I'm recording this, it's 8 in the afternoon. Well, evening, really. But anyways, finally, next up, one of my favorite characters, and definitely one I would be friends with, Edia Shroud. He is too relatable, except for the computer thing and Chapter 6 spoilers, because I am pretty alright mentally in that area. I think we'd be friends, especially if we share anime fandoms. Or for me, well, when I was writing this, just Jujutsu Kaisen. Do not worry, I've expanded my tastes. I still do like JJK, though. I just hope he's not one of those weird anime kids, which Rook would definitely be. Well, no, he wouldn't. He's just weird. In any case, I know he'd like Full Metal Alchemist. A wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So at least there's that. Anyways, I'll give him a 9.5 out of 10. Just because he might be a bit too much like me. I do often get annoyed by myself quite often. Like me writing this script and not saying it for 4 months. Why does he have the 3rd place in the intro then, if he has the 2nd highest rating besides a 10? I may have forgotten which one had which rating. Whoops. Sorry, Edia. At least you have less of a spotlight, considering you have social anxiety. Ha ha ha. Anyways, going with Ortho Shroud. Very short on this one. I both fear and want to hug this mechanism of pure destruction. No more words needed. 10 stars. We have a winner. Sorta. Character, really, really implied shipping. Because the main character at one point in Chapter 5 is like, oh, would you like to go to the conference I'll be managing? It's like, oh, you're not the conference, it's a competition I'll be helping manage for Song and Dance, and Alias looks at it and is like, oh, so you're not performing? What a pity. And yep. Kind of implied. Anyways, he's definitely very cool, though. And definitely has a gargoyle hyperfixation, as stated by the most definitely neurodivergent Edia. Trust me. Read 5 lines that aren't simpy of either one of them. Well, Edia doesn't really have simp lines, but Alice does. So read some of his gargoyle lines, and you shall see how right I am, Internet. 9 out of 10. Anyways, the last one might be a bit of have me gone a bit on a tangent. But next one, Lilia Van Rouge. Or Van Rouge. Not sure. He reminds me of my grandpa. Very cool. We'd be friends. 10 stars, maybe 11. Speaking of, my grandfather and I just, quote-unquote, just had a pun battle over text recently, and I somehow won. End quote. Just wanted to point that out. That was 4 months ago. I have not worked on this video. I work on this video in 2 month spans, and I have no clue why. I'm honestly trying to get this done at this point, so yay. Because I want to post other stuff, and this will not let my psyche go. Anyways, I kind of lied about this one being short if I said that. Anyways, moving on next. Oh, and by the way, just want to say, Lily and Ortho were the winners. That's what I was trying to point out. And Silver, the one that doesn't have a last name until the very end of the book. Not the book, the Twisted Wonderland chapters we have so far. There's a reason, and it is very wholesome and makes me very happy. I haven't even gotten to there, I've just been spoiled. But all people from teens to early 30s very much relate to this man in terms of the urge to sleep. I am very shooketh with the urge to just sit down for hours and do nothing. It is such a wonderful urge to just do nothing. Anyways, enough personal grievances. Also, I like animals and risotto as well. 8 stars. Definitely one of the higher ups. I'd probably put him... I don't think I've given anyone else 8 stars unless I've forgotten. So he's definitely, I believe, 4th place or 5th place. And anyways, moving on next. And next up, it's Sebek. Sebek is equal. As I was saying before I was so brutally interrupted by a fictional character, Sebek Siegvolt, he is way too loud. I'll give him 6 stars. Would not be friends because of the loudness, but maybe acquaintances. And that's it. If you want the staff, Big Bird is 5, Dogman is 2, Normal Person is 6, Ruggy's partner in crime, as also Train's emotional support animal, is a 10. Actually, no, 1,000. And the man with friends on the other side is an 8 because he gives 90 gems for the summons for 50 gems. Or if you actually get 250 gems, you get a free 10 pull because I tend to spend gems very liberally. Thank goodness for Cookie Run actually having more access. Whoa. And the reason I've been so oddly stumbly is because guess what? Phlegm! Yay! Anyways, and the Pyromaniac Raccoon Cat thing is a 4. That should be it. Alright, all the Zooms are all 10s, and the mouse is a 1. You know your sins. And I'm done. Please, 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 play Twisted Wonderland if you have the storage. It does take a lot, though. Check out my friend's channel. I'll put the link in the description if you want to. And have a great day. May most of your rolls be in your favor in reference to D&D, or gambling, I don't know, or Warhammer. And may your sorcerers not have 24 health at level 8 and get one shot at the end of the campaign, except if not for a Deus Ex Machina from the DM. But you put a 0 in my constitution. Me. I mean, honestly, I was playing a sorcerer, just to flesh that out. He rolled horribly. Anyways, I will be posting my first animatic of my horrible drawing attempts. Hopefully soon, probably not soon. Thank you for watching and or listening, and have a great day.